Bishop Giaquinta is called Servant of God, so because that cause for canonization has been opened with the permission of the Church, and now a process has begun to examine his life.
If anyone should be or could be a saint, canonized saint, it could be him, because he has all the qualities and he has all the fruits of his labor to show that his work continues in the Church today.
He had such an impact on people because of his own spirituality, which he was wearing, and he wanted to call people to spirituality in their own walks of life, whatever it was, and help them do that, and that was attractive. That caused a lot of people to be interested in him and in the movements that he began. Huh?
From the stories passed down to us in the Bible to our own ongoing stories that we add to and share each day, stories bring us together. Stories are vital to who we are. They educate, inform, and even entertain us. The stories of the great men and women of the world captivate our imaginations, inspire entire generations, and for the truly great souls, they show us the path to eternal glory. These are the stories that we ought to seek and the people we should get to know. But to truly know them, we must retrace their steps to discover the story behind these holy people. The story of Guglielmo Giaquinta, to be sure, is inspiring and a great picture of holiness. He, like you and I, and all the great saints throughout the ages, was once a child. In his case, a child being formed in ways he didn't even realize at the time, that would one day make him a great servant of God. Born on June 25th, 1914 in Noto, Italy, he was the third of 4 children. Guglielmo had a mischievous childhood. He would often skip school.
Going to school because of the Sicilian accent, he was not doing so well in school.
But the story that he tells is that he's going to collect stamps and send them to the jungle or wherever he was going to send them. But he did that by skipping school. So that was not good. This man who's up for canonization was sneaking out of his house and not going to school, but collecting stamps so that somebody else could have them.
The father noticed that he was not going to school. He said, "My son, I will punish you. You will go to the school of the priests."
And he was going to get a big talking to. Well, his father, knowing that his son was so gifted in so many ways, probably needed a change of scene. So they said, well, how about we send him to the seminary, a high school seminary? It's not that he has to be a priest, but if God calls him, the wherewithal is there.
It's a beautiful story how orneriness is corrected in good.
This proved a pivotal moment in Giaquinta's life. He often recounted this episode of his youth with a smile and concluded,
It's a strange thing. At the instant that I entered the door of that school, I knew with certainty that I had to become a priest. It was a certainty that never left me. It is the mystery of the priestly vocation.
And so it was to be. Young Guglielmo completed his education at the minor seminary and entered the major seminary in 1933. On March 18, 1939, Giaquinta was ordained a priest. The following day, on the solemnity of St. Joseph, he celebrated his first Mass. Thus, Father Giaquinta found for himself an unexpected patron in St. Joseph, who became a constant point of reference in his heart. He later made St. Joseph the patron of the Institute of the Apostolic Oblates.
It is well known that Bishop Giaquinta was a hard worker and didn't waste time, so I think he got, St. Joseph was a model for him in his life.
And to have his example of chastity and loyalty and just great love for Mary and Jesus, it has to impact the life of any priest, I think.
The Virgin Mary was an essential part of his spirituality as well.
So certainly in his years at the seminary and having that image of Our Lady of Trust right by the tabernacle really touched his heart, as Mary has Jesus pointing to her heart. He developed that beautiful relationship with Our Lady.
Well, if Bishop Giaquinta did not have a devotion to Our Lady of Trust, none of this would have gone anywhere.
And you have to know that every meditation, every retreat that he preached, the last meditation would be always on Mary. Mary always present, the mother, who gives a chance to become saint.
Father Giaquinta served as associate pastor at Our Lady of the Mountains until 1949, after which he served as rector of the Church of Our Lady of Loreto until 1968. In addition to his parish duties, Giaquinta took on a number of additional assignments that were ever more demanding in the Vicariate of Rome from 1945 to 1968.
We just draw the conclusion that he was very open to serving however he was asked to do it, and he was asked to do it in a variety of ways because he had the requisite gifts, and his superiors and the people around him had come to trust him and to trust his judgment.
Father Giaquinta's valuable service to the church was recognized when he was honored with the title of Monsignor in 1948.
But it was a recognition given by the Holy Father, but usually requested by the priest superior or bishop, to recognize the work that he had been doing, and it was a way of the church to sort of highlighting that good work and thanking him and complimenting him for his service.
Monsignor Giaquinta continued his tireless work for the Good Shepherd and his sheep, and on November 1st, 1968, he was consecrated a bishop.
For my whole life, I will wear this ring as a symbol of the mysterious spiritual marriage between my soul, my priesthood, and the church and the Diocese of Tivoli.
The priest and the priesthood were for Bishop Giaquinta's entire life objects of his fraternal solicitude, his continued prayer, and the passion of his heart.
One of the main reasons that he founded the Institute of the Apostolic Oblates was for them to pray for and support priests. And then he started this institute, the Apostolic Sodales, to help strengthen priests among themselves. He did everything he could that he could think of to help priests be who they are.
And so what he did for priesthood is he presented through the theology of priesthood through the Apostolic Sodales and the Cenicals a structure, a rule of life that we could really follow that would truly guide us along the road to holiness.
He centers that spirituality for priests in the Cenical, at the Last Supper, where it all began.
The spirit of the Cenical is about the brotherhood of priests. That is, we all strive to be holy as priests. We don't do it as lone rangers. We do it as a body of brothers.
So it is no surprise that the central objective of his pastoral activity was always vocations, and in particular, priestly vocations.
God used the pro-sanctity movement as an instrument to call me to priesthood.
Together with the Commission for Vocations, he began in his diocese a center for vocational direction at Castel Madama to help young people recognize the personal call that the Lord was making to every creature and to sustain those who felt invited to a life of particular consecration. Who was Guglielmo Giaquinta?
He was the most meek, humble, gentle person. Little shy, I would say, very reserved.
But he was a down-to-earth, gentle, holy man, very approachable.
Obispo Guillermo Giaquinta es una persona muy espiritual que nos han enseñado y me gusta mucho sus oraciones.
He was very gentle, very much a father figure for everyone. Simple, not putting on the airs of, look at me, I'm a bishop, just wanted to be part of everyone else.
his character exuded holiness. You know when you are in the presence of a holy person. And I can honestly say that I felt that I was in the presence of a very holy man.
He was so kind, and even though the kids didn't understand him, he would just get their faces like this. And they loved him and they followed him.
He had a fantastic sense of humor. He enjoyed any kind of joke that you could tell him, and he laughed with a characteristic smile and laughing way that made you laugh even if you didn't want to laugh. So I enjoyed that.
The way in which Bishop Giaquinta used the time granted him while serving the Lord here on earth is reminiscent of the many giants across our vast history, and the generosity that characterized his willingness to share his time with others is a living example of holiness.
We all knew that he would get up early at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the first 3-4 hours in the morning was to study.
Bishop Giaquinta was someone who did not waste time. All the time that he spent, he recognized was a gift from God to do his work. And so from the early morning, he studied, he prayed.
From 3:30 until 8:30 p.m., listening to confession, listening to spiritual direction. And people, especially young people, you know, also not so young people, they would go and would stay in line. I remember staying in line 1 hour, 2 hours before, amazing.
Bishop Giaquinta would often tell the Oblates,
"Time, my daughters, is the money of the poor. You must spend it for the good of souls."
the door of his house was always open. There were no specific times or hours for office work, diocesan business, pastoral visits, or appointments. He was simply at the complete disposal of anyone who wished to speak to him. What he taught, he lived first. He was a credible teacher because he was an authentic witness.
Through his teachings and the examples that he left behind, we are able to learn that everyone can be a saint.
Bishop Giaquinta's teachings continue to help instruct the faithful today.
If you read anything or if you're in a group sharing on any of his writings, it's like you just received it from Italy today.
Bishop Giaquinta's teachings have kind of been infused into my life one drop at a time. And one of the things that really sticks with me is his encouragement to never tire of starting over.
His philosophy is do the maximum and not the minimum.
His writings have had an impact not only in the small groups of people, the pro-sanctity movement, but also the universal church.
He had a profound sense of the values of the culture and was convinced that an essential task in spreading God's word of love and making it part of the historical fabric required the joining of culture and faith, culture and the gospel.
His understanding that as the family goes, so goes the culture. And so the importance of good, holy families in shaping the culture that we live in today, and that it's only through people feeling like they have a loving place to go to.
Beginning in 1957, in preparation for the day of universal sanctification, Father Giaquinta presented a series of conferences to correlate holiness with every human, social, and ecclesial situation. The intent was to concretize holiness and dislodge the notion that it is reserved for an elite few.
When I was writing my thesis on the pro-sanctity movement, I read a lot of his material, and it all just came together as truly calling us to holiness. I really never heard that term before.
To give you a sense of their breadth, some of the topics included holiness in the workplace, holiness in the family, the relevance of the saints, the laws of the church in the service of holiness, the saints and the ecumenical councils, holiness in the parish, holiness and the student, holiness in health, holiness and character.
And all of this, I think, has its roots in those early writings of Bishop Giaquinta, as he spoke about the universal call to holiness.
He just has this kind of fire for God, in his writings.
That's what he wanted our founder, to be holy in every which way that we are. The mother, the religious, the priest, the worker, and every place that you be, you could be really practicing the rules of holiness.
Also in 1957, Giaquinta published the first booklet outlining the universal call to holiness, entitled Saints, Are They Born or Do They Become Saints? In this work, he liberated sanctity from everything that made it inaccessible, including the miraculous, emphasizing instead the will of God, who desires holiness for each person.
He believed in the lay person's role in the church long before Vatican Council II. He truly believed in his heart that every single person had a vocation to holiness. He truly believed that holiness was not just for the few, as Mother Teresa has said. He believed that holiness was for all.
Giaquinta, understanding the power of the media as a means with connecting with people, helped to establish a printing press and 2 publishing houses, La Roxia and Pro Sanctitate.
And we have some great pictures of him, you know, behind a radio or a TV, and even just him holding a camcorder and following people around. And so I think that's a great encouragement for us today in an age of great social media to use it wisely, but to use it well.
And he did that through all the means available. He was not afraid to use different media, everything that was coming around at the time. He looked into that and used every means available to spread this message.
He was decades or even half a century at least ahead of his time.
Later in the 1970s, Bishop Giaquinta promoted a fraternal radio program and encouraged many to pursue the creation of television stations imbued with Christian principles.
He really was on the cutting edge of using media as a way to promote the call to holiness. He saw the vision that you had to evangelize.
There are more than 50 courses of spiritual exercises that Giaquinta preached to the laity, and about 30 that he preached to priests. Giaquinta's tireless work to spread the universal call to holiness was eventually affirmed by Mother Church during Vatican II.
And so, beginning with Bishop Giaquinta, in reminding us back in the 1950s that all of us are called to holiness, that when the church came for the major renewal of the church in the Second Vatican Council, that was an important part of the renewal, that all people are called to be saints.
Chapter 5 of Lumen Gentium, you know, something about the call to holiness. I said, wow, call to holiness. That's what they've been talking about in Pro Sanctity. Bishop Giaquinta saw a need for people to come and become brothers and sisters.
Actually, the Second Vatican Council took that also in their teachings, that we are all called to be saints, and that, you know, for some reason that wasn't articulated well previous to that, but through his teachings and his leadership, now the whole church sees that.
Giaquinta had a desire to concretize his thoughts.
There's no guessing as to what he heard, what he felt, but it's very, very clear. And so he wrote volumes and volumes on what he heard and what he contemplated and meditated on.
So that's why when Bishop Giaquinta concretized his teachings, it's valuable, because, I mean, you've got to be able to put it out there so it's not some mystery that's floating around your head. Those are concrete ways for us to chew and digest and to know his thought and to go deeper.
From this desire for concreteness was born the family of Apostolic maximalism, which includes the Pro Sanctity movement, the Apostolic Oblates, the social animators, the priest Sodales, and more.
He founded the Pro Sanctity movement in the aftermath of World War II. And if you think about what Italy was like at that time, I mean, it was rubble. It had been occupied. It was really in bad shape, and people were hurting and they were searching.
He was thinking about it and praying about it and grappling with this question, how can there be no more wars? What can we do? And then he realized if everybody became a saint, if we were all brothers and sisters, there wouldn't be any more wars.
The Apostolic Oblates were considered by him to be the strong and life-giving structure of the Pro Sanctity family.
The Apostolic Oblates are an integral part of life here. So many individuals and families have been influenced by them and by their vocation. Along with the Pro Sanctity movement, they help highlight for all of us the universal call to holiness.
Just that joy and that optimism that just is like, man, I want to be a part of this. That's what I want. When people look at me, I want to be that witness of joy and optimism, a sower of hope.
I encountered Bishop Giaquinta through the Oblates and through the Pro Sanctity family.
They're the extension of Bishop Giaquinta. They have the same love of Christ and the Blessed Mother, and they show that in everything they do.
Since he counted on the Pro Sanctity movement to spread his dearest ideal, the universal call to holiness, he gave his profoundest attention to the Institute's formation. With particular affection, he was a firm, vigilant, and generous father to the Apostolic Oblates. Whenever he could, he visited the Apostolic Oblates Bethanies.
He enjoyed life. He loved to go, when he came to the United States, go to Disneyland with the Oblates and drive around, and there are stories about him not recognizing the difference between kilometers per hour and miles per hour, going 100 miles per hour down the freeways in California.
He liked to play ping pong. When we were in California, that I liked to challenge him, and he was very good to playing ping pong. He was human.
For an extended time, he annually visited New York, California, and Nebraska, as well as Belgium, India, and various Italian cities. The movement continues to attract people worldwide today.
The simplicity of the message of the universal call to holiness, it's something that you can come in at any level and then just get deeper and deeper as you learn more and as you grow in holiness.
What attracted me to the Pro Sanctity movement were the Apostolic Oblates.
So we heard about an event out at Pro Sanctity called the Second Saturday, and they'll bring in a speaker, and you'll have Mass, and it's just a great gathering. And so we heard about it, and the Archbishop was supposed to be there one Saturday last year. And so we ended up going to that. We went to another event shortly, maybe 6-8 months later, and the Oblates remembered who we were, and we were just like instant family, and we haven't stopped going.
Es un movimiento que nos ayuda como padres a acercar a los niños a la iglesia.
I got interested when I saw that their faith grew and it changed in their life.
Escuchaba los anuncios en la iglesia que hablaban de que había un grupo de prosantidad aquí abajo en el sótano, y una vez decidimos venir a ver de qué se trataba, y nos gustó, junto con mi esposa, pues siempre vengo con mi esposa, con mi niño, y nos gustó mucho el mensaje que daban, el que todos somos llamados a la santidad.
So I like that they have a lot of fun activities for children, and ever since I came, they've welcomed me.
También puedo decir que este movimiento es muy importante porque a uno le da confianza, le ayudan a uno a crecer en la fe.
As Bishop Giaquinta's service to our Lord here on earth drew to a close, many of his spiritual children who were with him during his last illness fondly recall his hand resting on his breviary when he had neither strength nor voice. It was the last gesture of fidelity to his priestly prayer. On June 15th, 1994, Bishop Giaquinta entered into eternal rest with our Lord.
When he died, I was not there, and a phone call came, and I remember that we were just having lunch. We all got up and went to the chapel to pray.
At his funeral, nearly 100 priests concelebrated Mass with Bishop Reganesi.
And so many people, so many bishops, priests, Pro Sanctity members, Oblates, Sodales, social animators, the whole family was there.
As his casket processed out of the basilica, fittingly, a song that Bishop Giaquinta composed in honor of Our Lady of Trust was sung.
The funeral, there were especially so many young people, What impressed me was just the young people. They came from Sicily, from Salerno, and they sang so beautifully, Just really, it was a tribute of joy, of a celebration of life, and it was amazing, to see.
There is a period of what we might call a documentary process. So the church looks at files and letters and writings. Somebody like Bishop Giaquinta has a lot of letters and many writings. Someone goes through all of that. They present a file, a case, we might say, for all of that to the Holy See, to the Congregation for the Causes for the Saints. And then the congregation looks at it to see if it seems like this is a cause, a person whose life is worth pursuing in terms of the possibility of canonization.
In 2004, the church conferred the title Servant of God on Bishop Giaquinta.
The title Servant of God is given to someone who has exhibited heroic virtue in their lifetime.
His cause for beatification and canonization has been formally introduced.
But at this point, as much as I understand where Bishop Giaquinta's cause is, they're kind of wrapping up the diocesan phase, and hopefully it will be presented to the congregation, and he will be able to move on to that next step of venerable.
Throughout the history of the church, miracles are a very real part of the faith of the church. From Jesus himself to the apostles and the great saints throughout the ages, miracles have been well documented.
So we should pray to the Bishop of Giaquinta to obtain graces, to obtain miracles that we might need for ourselves or for other people in life. It's very, very important.
A few years ago, I picked up that card that has a picture of him on the front and the intercessory prayer on the back. Passed out about 50 of them to my family and friends for someone that we were praying for, and we definitely had a miracle happen. A family member returned to the church.
Holy Mother Church looks to her sons and daughters for the miraculous as an important step in the cause for beatification and canonization.
And I would encourage anybody to ask for his intercession because it's very powerful.
In the case of Bishop Giaquinta, the church will examine any miracle attributed to him. In doing so, it must be proven that the miracle has been granted by God through the intercession of Bishop Giaquinta.
After one miracle, the person is declared beatified or blessed, and then after another miracle, it's possible for the congregation to recommend to the Holy Father that the person be canonized.
We should pray for his intercession because we believe in intercessory prayer.
So it is with renewed vigor and hope that we humbly ask for the prayerful intercession of a man that so passionately dedicated his life in service to the Lord. Bishop Giaquinta, pray for us.
We hope you've enjoyed this video on the life of Bishop Giaquinta and that it's inspiring you to participate in his mission to promote the universal call to holiness and invite all of our brothers and sisters to become saints. Thank you to all who participated in the video and made this possible, especially to Greg Weiss and for all of his work. We thank all of the people who have participated in Pro Sanctity over the many years and their lives offered for the call to holiness, the graces that we receive in response to their life, and invite you now to participate more fully in God's call to holiness for you and your life. If you'd like to participate in any of our Pro Sanctity activities, please join us at one of our centers, give us a call, or check out our website. We hope that you too would like to journey to holiness with us. None of us can get to heaven alone, and we have a great desire to get to know you and to journey with you, to receive from you in your journey, and together to create a world of saints and of brothers and sisters.